Hello. Today's stories come from r/I don't work here lady. We've got 3 stories today. The first is from my homeland of Kanekistan, the land of igloos, maple syrup, and where lumberjacks ride polar bears to work. We'll start with Karen doesn't understand how franchising works. In my late teens, I worked at a popular Canadian coffee and donut shop named for a former NHL player. I'll call it Trevor Linden's. There are many throughout my town, but I worked at one particular one near the waterfront. One day, I took my grandfather to the clinic for his weekly checkups. I didn't like waiting around the office, so I went down to the Trevor Lindens by there, got a coffee, and started reading a magazine, waiting for his call that he was done and ready to go back home. I was in no way wearing my uniform or anything similar to it, but one Karen knew me from my location and began trying to get my attention. Apparently, the line was too long, and they were a bit backed up. When I looked up, she swept the table with her hand, knocking over my coffee and some papers I had spread out, and said, "Break's over." I said, "Frag you," though I probably wasn't as polite. I wasn't done with that. She said, "You work here. You've helped me before. Get off your lazy butt and help out here," and then proceeded to give me her order. The manager and an employee came over and asked what was going on here. The employee began cleaning up my coffee from the floor while Karen told the manager, "Your employee needs to be helping rather than sitting here drinking coffee and reading." The manager said, "She doesn't work here. She can't help you with anything." To which Karen said, "Bull crap. She helps me all the time at waterfront location." The manager said, "That's nice, but this is the downtown location. She doesn't work here." When the employee finished cleaning up, the manager told him to get me another coffee, and Karen blew up even more. "What the heck for? She should be working. She's a Trevor Linden's employee. She should be helping." The manager said, "Yes, she may work at Trevor Linden's, but not this one. Right now, she's just a customer. If you can't be civil, I'll have to ask you to leave." Karen fumed, but returned to her seat, and I thought it was over as the employee brought me another coffee. Side note, I have a pretty complicated coffee order, and I was impressed the employee got it right without asking me what it was. Maybe he found my receipt or order slip or something, but he got it correct the first time. I couldn't have done that without help. But it gets better. I was at my location a few days later when Karen came in and got in line. When she got to me, I recognized her, but slapped on my happy customer service face and said, "Welcome to Trevor Linden's. How may I help you?" She said, "Get me your manager." She was definitely out for blood. I continued smiling, said, "Sure thing," and went in the back and got him. He asked her what the problem was, and she said, "Your employee here wouldn't take my order and was disrespectful to me." My manager said, "Sure thing, what may I get for you?" acting as if she had meant right here, right now. Karen said, "No, not here at the downtown location a couple days ago." My manager said, "She doesn't work there. Why did you expect her to help you?" Karen said, "She's an employee of Trevor Linden's. It's her duty to help all customers at every Linden's location." My manager said, "That's another franchise. We may all be Trevor Linden's, but that's a different location and she has no responsibilities there. Now, is there something I can get you here?" Karen snorted, turned on her heel, and marched out the doors. I was more willing to help out and volunteer for that manager after that. Edit. Trevor Linden was my dad's favorite player growing up, so that's why I picked that name. I like the rationale for the name selection at the end that OP included. Super cute. Also, have to say, even if OP had worked at the waterfront location, Karen still would have been out of line. It's interesting to me that there is an expectation that frontline staff, often making minimum wage, are expected to give up their well-deserved breaks to serve customers. It allows companies to continue to staff the minimum number of people possible. On to some fun comments of barista humor, though I think you'd be hard-pressed to call anyone working at Tim Hortons a barista. Black Avenger said, "You don't even have to help her at your current location while on break. She doesn't control your breaks." I would have put in a complaint about her to your manager, just in case she showed up. Someone replied, "I know. That's why I always took my breaks in the back room, because if someone is polite enough, I would get up and help them." Someone else replied, "That's so Canadian." It really is. Jesus Christ said, "It's her duty? Where do they even get these ideas?" Someone else replied, "Didn't you know I had to take an oath of office to serve coffee? At least some people thought so." Another person replied, I'd love to read the barista oath. First law, a barista may not injure a customer or their coffee or, through inaction, allow a customer or their coffee to come to harm. Second law, a barista must obey the orders given it by customers except where such orders would conflict with the first law. Third law, a barista must protect its own coffee shop and the contents thereof as long as such protection does not conflict with the first or second law. Pasta Noodle Doodle said, I just learned that Tim Horton was a hockey player. Grouchy Platypus replied, his story is both wild and sad. He died in a car crash before his business basically became the face of Canada. Now, Tim Hortons is owned by a multinational conglomerate with a Brazilian firm as the majority shareholder. Floatable Pie, in reply to he died in a car crash, said, drunkenly evading cops. Our second story comes from Deutschland, where there's been another international Karen sighting. The story is, well, this went down. First of all, sorry for some grammar mistakes. English is not my first language, but hey, I try my best, right? This story happened around a week ago, and we had a chill business meeting at a local restaurant. I hate really uptight meetings, so I prefer it over a nice, enjoyable lunch with my coworker and one of my trainees. It was supposed to be a nice chat with an applicant, no private info shared or anything like that, just to get to know each other. A little back info. I work for a small local game developer, and I've been on the lookout for a front of the desk person to help me out with some stuff. I work as a senior PR manager. I'm 28 years old, while my coworker, 58 years old, is my so-called junior PR manager. We switch positions because he's a somewhat stone-cold numbers maniac, while I'm more into marketing strategies and into gaming as well. So I have more to offer while he's my strong experience backup. We laugh about it and basically get paid the same amount. But in serious situations, I make the calls. Back to the story. I already did a few interviews with some candidates and thought this one is going to go easy as well, since none piqued my interest. My coworker and trainee already arrived and sat in the back of the restaurant while I still had time to grab a smoke outside. Since it was still a business meeting, I was wearing my black jeans and a white shirt while the staff of the restaurant was wearing black jeans and a green polo shirt with the restaurant's logo on it. So the idea of getting mistaken for a staff never hit my mind. After I finished my smoke, an elderly couple came by, and since I was raised to be a good person, I hold the door open for them. A nice little thanks and a little chat about the weather, some little chat that took like 20 seconds. But then it hit me. The popularity of Karens in Germany isn't that high, so it was only an internet myth to laugh about for me. But finally, in 2022, I encountered my first wild Karen. And this is how it went. Hey, boy, hold the door. Wait, what? I said hold the dang door. Can't you hear? I have an important meeting here. It took me a few seconds to realize what was happening. I think it's like in the military or police training. The internet prepared me for it, but when it hits you, you aren't prepared enough. She throws me her jacket and stomps through the half-open door. Can't you do anything right? Did you hit your head somewhere, or are you just messed up in the head? I was raised to be a good boy, but somehow, after leaving my parents' house, I kind of shortened my fuse, even if I would have worked there. The shock on her face was perfect, like listening to a song that just hits right. How dare you? Let's see what your boss thinks about this. She huffs into the restaurant and rushes to the counter as she grabbed the waitress waiting at the bar. You need to educate your staff. This kid, thanks to my Asian genes, I may not look that old, but I still have fine trim beard, just dropped my jacket. What kind of service is this? Get his act together and bring me a coffee. The waitress was stunned, and I couldn't blame her. In our area, this was a rare sight. I gestured her to be calm behind Karen's back and smiled at her so she can relax a little bit. Karen stormed off into the back for her relaxed interview while I talked to the waitress. After a few moments, she got herself back together and looked at me while I told her to hand me her coffee and explained to her that Karen's with me. When the coffee was done, I grabbed the saucer and coffee, put on my friendliest smile, and went back to my meeting. When my coworkers saw me, they greeted me back while Karen fixated me with her best death stare she could put on, while trying her best to make a good impression on my coworkers, since she's the one being interviewed. Her face went from red to a pale white when I sat down in front of her, keeping her so-called ordered coffee for myself. I almost couldn't hold my laugh when she realized who I was and she just threw her interview down the pipe. She left as fast as she could, and me and my coworkers had a laugh when I told them what happened. We had a nice chat, and since this meeting was on the clock, we took our time, and I paid for the lunch out of my own pocket. it was totally worth it. I love this story. The interview started at the door, obviously, and in my opinion, actually went really well for OP. Think of the time savings on their part. I mean, if they had hired this a-hole Karen, they would have had to deal with firing her. There's some useful interview advice in the comments. Let's check it out. She Who Loves to Draw said, fantastic way to interview someone. Let a person in charge be the first to engage with the interviewee without letting them know who you really are. That way, you can see how the interviewee treats the rest of the staff. If they're horrible like that woman, it's an immediate no. I know you think so, replied. I used this method constantly when I was a head of customer service. I'd sit at the front desk and welcome them when they came in, let them wait a few minutes, maybe interact with them, and then call them in. You see a lot about a person when they interact with someone they think is, or perceive to be, lesser. Pirate John 75 said, I remember when Richard Branson had a reality show contest to appoint a new executive. On the first episode, he put on a chauffeur outfit and picked up the contestants from the airport without telling them who he was. When the contestants were all assembled, he stood in front of them in his usual clothes, told them he had been the chauffeur, and pointed at one guy lined up and said, You can go home now. The guy had been an a-hole to him when he thought Branson was just the chauffeur, and Branson said he wouldn't pick anyone who treated staff so badly. And now for our final story. I don't have the keys for a store I don't work at. My workplace is a small boutique-style pet food, self-wash grooming salon. I'm the groomer. I show up at 8 a.m. for early morning appointments, and we open at 10. Next door is a General Dollar, and the management must be the worst because they are constantly having issues keeping staff and staying open. When this story took place last year, the manager wasn't showing up on time, and when I'd come to unlock my shop, I'd see the DG workers waiting outside, especially in the snow, and I started a good rapport with them, as I'd let them come into my store and warm up if they needed to while waiting for their perpetually late manager. One morning, I showed up to more than the usual number of people milling around the parking lot. I generally get to work at 7:45, so seeing anyone other than DG workers is unusual. As I was grabbing some equipment from my car, a man said to me, Oh, they've been waiting for you. This was surprising to me, but not unheard of. Sometimes my early grooming appointments are super early because of work or school drop-offs, which is why I take appointments at that time in the first place. As if to punctuate this idea, I saw a regular and his two dogs wandering around a grassy area taking care of business. I greeted my clients, exchanged a typical Southern greeting. Hey girl, how you doing? Oh, it's doing. You keeping warm? I'm trying. Have a good day. You too. With the DG workers I knew by sight and opened the shop. A few hours later, the owner, my boss, walked into the grooming room with her I hate people look on her face. I got a complaint about you, antisocial. My blood ran cold. Me? What? Why? She shook her head a few times, laughing. You didn't unlock the General Dollar this morning when you unlocked our door. I attempted to reconcile this idea with reality. I failed spectacularly. Huh? This guy called to complain about you. You unlocked our door, but didn't even try to unlock next door. I stared at my boss, fish-mouthing until the dog I was grooming tried to stick his head inside it. That was when my brain caught up with what was happening. Yeah, I didn't unlock the Chinese restaurant on the other side of us either. Guess I'm just slacking today. My boss went on to tell me that she pointed out to the gentleman that I do not work at the General of Dollars and that my key wouldn't have fit the lock. Apparently, the gentleman firmly believed that I should have tried. My boss advised him to call DG to complain, and this was where she lost it and started cracking up. And his response was to say that I worked at the pet shop, not DG, so he was calling her. She said, Well, I don't know what you think I can do, sir, and hung up. I'm picturing an older curmudgeon who has nothing better to do than call the wrong places to complain about staff from other stores. He probably called Dollar General, and there was no answer, and he really just wanted to chat with someone. Also, OP's boss sounds super awesome. Let's check out the comments. There are some details about Dollar General customers for those of us that have never had the privilege of shopping there. Allegory said, OMG, this is precious. By the way, I am mad at you because you didn't unlock the door to my building neither when I got home. Very inconsiderate of you. Maximum N said, apparently everyone should have a universal key. Someone replied, excuse me, I lost mine. Can I just borrow yours for a hot minute? Jasper Lily had this to share. Dollar General customers are the worst sometimes. I know because I'm a key holder assistant in training. We had an issue one time where our assistant had to call in. She was in labor after all, and the store didn't open until noon. Some guy decided to call the police because we weren't open. I legit walked up to my store at 1 p.m. with cop cars waiting outside, wondering if someone got shot or we were robbed or something. People are nuts, apparently, if they can't do their shopping. If you've enjoyed the story and would like to hear more, consider liking, subscribing, and leaving a comment. Thanks, and bye for now.